As the November midterms creep closer, something genuinely unexpected is happening, and it's turning a lot of heads. Fox News, the same network that has spent years defending Donald Trump on just about everything, is now openly sounding alarms about the economy under his watch. And when Fox News starts saying things like this out loud, you know the situation is serious. Today, we're going to walk through what's happening, why it matters, and why this moment feels different. And real quick, if you enjoy breaking down political chaos like this and want to support the channel, hit like, subscribe, and tap that notification bell so you don't miss what's next. For a long time, Trump had a built-in advantage when it came to the economy. Republicans in general benefit from this long-standing belief that they're just naturally better economic managers. That idea has stuck around for decades, even though the actual data shows the economy usually performs better under Democratic presidents. But facts aside, that perception helped Trump. Add to that his carefully crafted image as a billionaire businessman, a deal maker who supposedly knew how to make money rain, and politically speaking, he was playing with house money. But fast forward to now, and that advantage is slipping away fast. Trump's numbers on the economy have fallen off a cliff. In just about a year, his approval on economic issues has dropped to levels that are just as bad, and in some cases worse than Biden's ever were. This isn't spin. This isn't hype. It's showing up in the polls, it's showing up in focus groups, and now it's showing up on conservative television. That's why Fox News is suddenly having these very awkward, very uncomfortable conversations on air. And one of the most telling moments came from someone who knows Republican politics inside and out, Karl Rove.
Piece in the Wall Street Journal talking about how tariffs, that everybody was against him on this, said it was going to be terrible. And he writes a lengthy piece there talking about how they're working. He says, with the help of tariffs, we have cut the federal budget deficit by a staggering 27% in a single year. And even more incredibly, we have slashed our monthly trade deficit by an astonishing 77%, all with virtually no inflation, which everyone said could not be done. Now, Karl, we wait for a tariff decision from the Supreme Court. He does mention the court in this piece, too. It says he hopes they're paying attention, but he says for now, he's proving the haters wrong.
Yeah, well, the problem is we need to go back to essentials. Olivia put her finger on it. He's making the same mistake Joe Biden made. Bidenomics is working. That piece in the Wall Street Journal is the economy is great. That's not what people feel. Last year, we lost 70,000 manufacturing jobs. We lost 145,000 blue-collar jobs. There's a great deck put out today by the Washington consultant and prognosticator Bruce Millman. Blue-collar consumer confidence is at a record low since 1976 when they began asking the question. The top 20% of the American population is responsible for 75% of the GDP. The bottom 80% is responsible for 25% of the GDP. The lower income households are bearing a bigger burden of inflation because the things that they have to pay for, like rent and utilities, have risen higher. Back to essentials. Three things. Biden put us in a deep hole. We're working hard to get it out. Here's the success we've had so far, but we got more to do, and what I've got to do is A, B, C, D. Not everything is hunky-dory. It conflicts with what you feel. Get where people are, and where people are is they're willing to accept that good things are happening. They're willing to accept if he explains it what he's done, but they want to hear, most important of all, you know we're still in a bad place, and you got more things you want to get done.
That right there is a big deal. Karl Rove isn't some random critic. He's Republican royalty. And even he is saying you can't just declare victory while people are struggling to pay their bills. Yes, he still squeezes in some Biden blame, because that's basically muscle memory at this point. But listen to the core message. The economy Trump is bragging about does not match how people actually feel. And when voters feel like you're being talked down to, that's political poison. What Rove is really doing here, without saying it directly, is tearing apart that Wall Street Journal op-ed published under Trump's name. The one where Trump claims tariffs are flawless, inflation is basically gone, prices are down, and everything is perfect. It sounds good on paper, but it doesn't line up with reality. Poll after poll shows Americans are unhappy with the economy, and these aren't liberal polls. These are Fox News polls. These are surveys from Tony Fabrizio, Trump's own longtime pollster. When even your own numbers are flashing warning signs, that's a serious problem. And since manufacturing keeps popping up in these conversations, we need to slow down and really look at that, because it's central to Trump's entire economic pitch. He promised a manufacturing renaissance, a blue-collar revival, factories roaring back to life. But a recent Wall Street Journal article paints a very different picture. And yes, the Wall Street Journal leans conservative, but it's also taken seriously. When criticism comes from there, it carries real weight. According to that reporting, U.S. manufacturing isn't booming, it's shrinking. Fewer Americans are working in manufacturing now than at any point since the pandemic ended. After Trump rolled out his so-called Liberation Day tariffs, manufacturers cut jobs for 8 straight months. More than 200,000 manufacturing jobs have disappeared since 2023. That's not a comeback story. That's a warning sign. Factory activity has been contracting for more than 2 years. There was a small uptick recently, but even that came with bad news. Construction spending tied to manufacturing has fallen during Trump's early months back in office. That spending had surged earlier because of Biden-era investments in things like semiconductor plants and clean energy projects, and now it's sliding. Businesses don't pull back like that when they're confident. They pull back when they're worried. Economists quoted in the article explain that output has stabilized, mostly because companies are squeezing more out of fewer workers. In plain terms, that means efficiency, not hiring. At the same time, tariffs are driving up costs for businesses that rely on imported materials. Those companies are forced to raise prices, eat the losses, or scramble for alternatives that often don't exist. And the uncertainty just keeps piling up. Trump's constant tariff threats against Europe, Canada, and South Korea have executives calling this a lost year for investment. On top of that, the possibility that the Supreme Court could strike down parts of the tariff policy adds even more instability. Businesses hate uncertainty, and right now, Trump's economic approach is nothing but uncertainty. Meanwhile, China and other countries are still flooding global markets with cheap exports, pushing prices down and making it harder for U.S. manufacturers to compete. One steel executive flat out admitted that almost none of their products have benefited from tariffs. In some cases, companies are still forced to import steel because there simply isn't enough domestic supply. That's the opposite of what this policy was supposed to achieve. So with all of that in mind, let's come back to Fox News, because watching them try to process this in real time is honestly fascinating. At one point, a host tries to spin the economic pain as something positive, and you can almost feel how uncomfortable the room gets.
Sometimes when you renovate a house, you got to make it worse before you make it better. You're going to put a lot of things at play, right? There's going to be a lot of sheetrock laying around. There's going to be nails in the floor.
Demolition.
You can see it on their faces. That whole trust the process argument only works if people believe there's a payoff coming. Right now, they don't. Voters aren't feeling hopeful. They're feeling squeezed. And then Fox goes on to accidentally say the quiet part out loud.
Because more young adults are admitting they're asking the bank of mom and dad to cover rent, insurance, groceries, and even nights out. So are parents fueling a failure to launch economy by propping up their adult children with thousands of dollars a month?
That's not a lifestyle trend. That's economic stress showing up in real life. When parents are covering rent and groceries for their adult kids, that's a sign something deeper is wrong. And finally, even Brit Hume had to confront reality after Fox released a poll that was, frankly, brutal.
Yeah, one quick one on the U.S. economy. We hear from the administration about the growth and the potential growth in Q1, Q2, and what they see on the horizon. We asked, are you better off financially than a year ago? Better 24%, worse 39%, same 36%. It is what we've talked about numerous times about feeling where the economy is and what that means for people at home.
Yeah, as we look ahead to the midterms, Brett, people are going to be judging this election and the president's continuing standing on the basis of how well they feel the economy is going. There are signs, and some experts say that we're going to have a booming economy this coming year or this rest of this year, and certainly the administration certainly needs that because while the stock market is high and employment is relatively high, people do not feel good about this economy. This poll suggests that, and they haven't for some time, and it's not so far getting any better for them, which would be very dangerous for the Republicans in the midterm elections.
Yeah.
And that's the bottom line. When Fox News is openly admitting that people don't feel good about the economy, that's a flashing red warning light for Trump and Republicans heading into the midterms. They're practically begging for a change in message, a shift in tone, some acknowledgement of reality. So far, Trump doesn't seem willing to do that. And politically, that's a very dangerous place to be. Let me know what you think down in the comments, and I'll see you in the next one.